Hello and welcome to Tech is for Everyone, the podcast series that deep dives into tech professionals' journeys using their experience to get you the best hints and tips to break into the world of tech. Just starting your career or looking to sidestep into a new industry or wanting to climb through the ranks, tune in and get ready to be inspired. Today I'm joined by Em Ledger, Group Product Manager at the BBC. Em and I talk about how she fell into tech after starting her own business, the importance of empathy, neurodiversity in tech, and how not to be a tick box employer. Tune in to find out more.
Well, I've got a few questions to ask, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll start with the one that I always do. So it's, what does technology mean to you?
Well, I think technology is something that kind of helps to even the playing field, I think. So I try and see it as an enabler for people. So obviously it powers the world, but I really like to think about how it powers people.
Yeah, okay.
So obviously, it makes, global businesses be able to run and connect people in lots of ways. But from a human level, it means that people kind of have a little bit more of a same opportunity, right? So
Okay.
I think one way of really interpreting that is, like, if you think about in COVID, when, children were at home and some people didn't have iPads and, people couldn't actually access the basic tools that everybody kind of took for granted, right? So everyone was like, just work from home. Well, what if we can't, right? So I do think technology, that showed where we're still at and where there's still growth to be had, but also it is the way for us all to get on that same page. We all have access to the same content online, provided we have that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think in a world that used to be full of silos and people never really been able to progress from a certain point, whether it's like geographical or socioeconomic, I think it really is the tool that is helping everybody access new things and reach new heights in their lives. So I really like technology for that, and that's also why I kind of like what I do in tech as well. It's very much a people thing for me.
Right, okay. Yeah, so people first, tech second almost.
Yeah. Use it as a tool. Yeah.
So did you always want to work in tech?
Nope.
Fell into the cliche of falling into it?
Yeah, 100%. Had no idea what it was like to work in tech.
Right.
I have dyscalculia, which is like maths dyslexia. So have no GCSEs in maths or science.
Right.
Which for a STEM career is not what you'd imagine. So again, didn't see that, A lot of my friends were interested in computing and things like that.
Yeah.
No interest. Very much a creative person.
Yeah.
Again, because that was a strength. I'm also a writer, so I kind of have the balance of the two. No, never saw myself in tech. Never had any role models or anybody that worked in tech in my family or family friends or anything like that. So no, just didn't even see it was an option.
I guess that's the misconception, right? It's that if you work in tech, you have to be good at maths or good at the application that's going to lead you to be able to code. And tech is dev, maybe. I think that's maybe less so now, but probably still the same. But definitely sort of maybe 5-10 years ago, it was, if I'm going to go work in tech, I'm going to go be a software developer. And actually, there's just so much more out there than that. It's not I have to be excellent at maths and I have to be able to code. There's just far more to it.
Yeah, I think it's still, in a lot of cases, people do think that, and that's why it's so important, I think, for visibility and working with kind of STEM pipelines and stuff like that, to actually tell people there's actually loads of cool jobs in tech. Saying to kids, oh, you like YouTube? Do you know you could actually build YouTube? Right, and you don't necessarily have to code to do it. Mind blown.
Yeah, and they also see, I'm not going to act like I'm down with the kids and I know all the famous YouTubers, but they also see them that they've got loads of cash as well out of the back of it, so why not?
Yeah, exactly.
So your role as it is now then, so you've obviously, like you say, you've fallen into tech. Like, is there anything about your role that you do now that you didn't necessarily expect, or?
Yeah, so I think because I fell into tech and I didn't really know what to expect, I didn't realise, I think probably two things. One is the amount of sort of soft skills needed.
Right.
So I do so much public speaking.
Yeah.
So as a product manager, I think a lot of it is communicating and telling a story, bringing people along, stakeholder management. You are constantly presenting things. Yeah. So I did not expect that. And that obviously does not come day one, here's a course in how to present things. You just find your way and you find your ways of communicating and how to speak, right?
Yeah.
Which is a whole thing.
Almost fake it till you make it and start.
100%. So I think that was a big thing. That was a big learning curve. And the other thing is coming from a background. So I'm from a working class background, and again, I felt like I fell into uni.
Right. Okay.
And I was like, wow, I was the first person in my family to go uni. I had no idea what that meant.
Yeah.
And getting into tech, it was, just travel here and stay in this hotel, and it's like, what? Expenses and all that sort of stuff. Which
corporate world.
That to me was, before that I'd worked in retail and I'd done a bunch of, because as I said, I was writing. I've been writing for a long time.
Yeah.
You sort of do that, and that's a whole different world. There's no hotels. Very, not much money in that. You do it for the passion.
Yeah.
And I was working in the NHS, a bit of temping, trying to make the writing thing work.
Yeah. So
when I fell into tech and it was all expenses and, kind of cover this and go to this hotel, I was like, what on earth is my life? So I think they're the two things that I did not expect.
What prompted you to take the step then, I guess, from that sort of retail or NHS world to go, oh, well, actually, I could go work in tech and I'm going to go do this. I mean, how did you find out about the world of products? Or I guess maybe it didn't start as product, it started as something else.
Well, so when I was in retail, it was, and this is going to date me very specifically. It was when EPOS systems came out.
Right, yeah.
And I was working in retail, obviously, and at the point where everyone started changing to e-commerce, all the shops were getting the EPOS systems installed. So you could actually, instead of having your stock list on a piece of paper with a pen, it was actually on a database, right? And so when I was learning that, I thought, I quite like this. There's something about this that I'm drawn to and I like it. And I was getting a sort of bit of a dopamine hit at the end of, completing the task. I was like, okay, I like this.
Yeah.
And just kind of taught myself and thought, okay. And at the time in retail, I was working in like streetwear and skate, like action sports.
Okay.
And there's very low representation of like women's wear and things like that. Oh, very different now. I mean, look at like the Lionesses and Sky Brown in skateboarding, and there's all kinds of stuff. Back then, it was not the case.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of male buyers in that sort of field.
Yeah.
And even for me as a customer, I couldn't find what I wanted. And then when I was doing the buy-in, there was just hardly any women's wear. And if there was, we weren't able to sort of choose it because it was like, oh, women's wear never works.
Right, okay.
So I saw basically like a gap in the market.
Yeah.
Thought this is a nice USP. Don't ask me where this entrepreneurial spirit came from. But I just thought, I might just try it.
Yeah.
I set my own business up.
Right, okay.
And I taught myself to build an e-commerce store.
Yeah.
Did that all.
Nice.
Went on loads of free training things because I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
And made it happen, got funding. I'm from Doncaster, so got local funding and set up a business, ran that for 3 years. And obviously part of that was, when I say I fell into tech, I was just going, I'm going to make a shop because I want to do this thing. And again, tech was that enabler, right? It wasn't, I'm going to get into tech.
Yeah.
I used that to have the shop.
Yeah.
Because again, business savvy tells you don't want a niche shop in a specific location. It's better online. Yeah, so that's how it came about.
But e-commerce, not EPOS.
Exactly. Yeah.
I remember EPOS systems as well. I reckon one of my first recruitment gigs when I was doing recruitment was like an EPOS systems developer for what was a well-known retailer, and they don't exist anymore. So it shows that they didn't obviously move on with the times. So
that was a biggie. Yeah, that was the pivot for me.
Yeah.
And then after doing that for 3 years, running a small business is hard.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was 24.
Gosh.
So lots of lessons learned.
That's a bold step to take at that age.
Again, who knows where it came from. But at 27, I thought, okay, I've actually found what I like here.
Yeah.
My degree, I should say, was in film and media production. So I've always been quite, I guess, technically minded, really, but also mixed in with that creativity.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, this is something I actually want to do. And that's when I tipped over into looking for digital roles.
Right.
A bit more, in-house, permanent. Did a bit of consulting as well.
Yeah.
But I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do because, as we talked about before, it's massive.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I was running my own business, so I was doing a bit of e-commerce. I was doing, obviously, digital marketing.
Yeah.
Learning SEO and PPC, because you have to.
Yeah, of course.
You know, all these different things, and actual coding and design and all sorts of stuff. So I kind of thought, well, I need to narrow this down. If I'm going to work in-house somewhere, I need to know which role I'm going to go for.
Yeah.
So I originally went into like e-commerce roles, digital marketing, and then through that, being in-house for a company for 3 years, I kind of worked up to being head of digital.
Right.
And because again, all those skills all together, that kind of fit.
Yeah.
But then there was a ceiling.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what of these things do I actually want to progress in?
Yeah.
So at that point, that's when I discovered what product management was. I'd been working with developers for a few years then. I thought, that's for me.
Yeah.
Went on a course and then got the job at Sky.
Right.
And Sky actually do lots of entry-level product roles, so a product owner specifically. Yeah. And that was it. Didn't really know much about it. Thought, I tick all these boxes. Yeah, okay, we'll give it a go. And I got the job. And then, honestly, learn on the job was an understatement.
But I guess you've actually been able to lean on the other skills that you've acquired, though. It's like, I guess, I spend a lot of time sort of talking to people, obviously, who are thinking about getting into tech. And again, it's that misconception of, oh, well, tech is coding. And it's like problem-solving skills, communication skills, someone maybe who's a 35-year-old mum of two. And it's like you're dealing with two toddlers, right? They're the most difficult stakeholders you could ever imagine, right?
Yep.
If you can deal with toddlers, you can probably deal with stakeholders in a business. It's just conversations with people.
Very
It's
true.
kind of breaking down that kind of, like I say, that sort of misconception or stigma that's attached to, oh, well, tech is code. And it's, well, no, actually, there's loads of soft skills that you'll have, or just experiences generally across your life that you can apply to different roles that aren't just being a dev, for example. So,
True. Yeah, absolutely. I do think out of it all, no matter what role you're in, the biggest, most valuable skill is actually empathy.
Yeah.
Which again kind of comes back to this human stuff, but I think in product you're working with all the different people, all the different skill sets, all the different communication styles. For example, if you're working in like the sort of content and marketing side of things, there's a totally different way of communicating to say when you're working with developers, how you book working, or how, just generally speaking, it's very detailed. And then you've got kind of a little bit more whimsical on the other side. So you kind of have to bring it all together into one strategy. But I think the empathy bit comes in because fundamentally you've got the empathy for the stakeholders that you're working with, but also the end user, the customer, however you term that particular, where you're shipping the product to. Everybody needs to identify with that vision.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it is always going to be how that person interacts with that thing.
Yeah.
So if you can get in their shoes, understand the friction, understand the problems they're facing, that gives you that motivation, right? So, at Sky, during COVID, there was a massive influx of people needing lots more devices on the broadband connection. Yeah. So obviously, they made money, of course, but there was definitely a real social conscience about it. Yeah, so actually, a lot of people were involved in that at Sky in working with schools, organisations and things like that. There was a lot of outreach there.
Yeah.
But for our teams internally, a big thing for us was we were sort of in the shoes of each of those people that were complaining and trying to get help and support. And I was in the help team at the time, so really fortunate in that we had an opportunity to help.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, literally help.
So I think the teams, working in COVID was really hard. So everybody, was kind of suffering from fatigue and all of the feelings that we had during the pandemic.
Yeah. But
we were able to, instead of making that kind of a drain on the work, it actually felt like, we're here to do something. There's a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And having that empathy of, do you know what, I know how that feels.
Yeah.
That's really hard. Families were at home doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You're walking in the shoes of the end user. So we actually put out some really great features at that time because that empathy was so strong.
Yeah.
So I do think that's the biggest skill.
Yeah. No, I think that's brilliant. So other than the job you do now in products, if you had to do any other job in tech, what would you pick?
Well, not for a career because I think product is definitely for me.
Yeah.
But I would love to just be a Scrum Master for a bit. Because I just think it's such a great idea.
Yeah.
So like when you tell people who don't work in tech that there's a Scrum Master, they're like, sorry, what did you just say? What is that? And then you explain it and they're still like, really? That's a job? Yeah, I just love that their whole role is like positive vibes.
Yeah.
You know, they're just out there trying to look after people, coaching, again, running around just to try and protect the work, protect the team.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not easy, but they shoulder so much just to keep the vibes,
Like
the
say,
spirit,
positive
the
vibes
work going. I just think it's awesome. And yeah, just the, I guess the time carved out in their role to be so human first.
Yeah.
I just think it's a great idea. I do see, you know, more people sort of going into that delivery manager world now,
Yeah.
but I do hope there's still space for Scrum Masters because it's just beautiful. I love it.
That's the slogan. Positive vibes only.
Yeah,
Job
exactly.
description, Scrum Master, positive vibes only.
Yeah.
Full stop.
It's a certain type of person for that role. You know, you can't be a good Scrum Master if you don't have the vibes.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So back to sort of your current job and role. So what's like the most important lesson that you've learned?
To say no as much as you say yes.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So I do think there's a misconception about product managers where it is that you can be a bit of a yes person.
Right.
Because it's true, you have to make things work with everybody, right?
Yeah.
You have to get buy-in from everybody. You sort of have to make everyone your friend.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a moment where a product manager knocks on someone's door and asks for a favour. But I don't think it needs to be as, you know, sometimes it sounds quite sociopathic. So I was like, get everybody on board. You know, it's definitely not like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is, I think, misconception that it is about making, I don't know, spin doctors. There's all these different things, right?
Yeah.
And you definitely can't be a yes person.
Yeah.
I actually learned that very early on in my career. The first bit of negative feedback that I got was from a head of tech,
right.
Which again, at the start of my career, worst. Oh my God. And that was because she said to me, you need to stop saying yes. The team have got so much on.
Yeah.
I know you're trying to please everybody.
Please everyone, yeah.
But we're never going to get anything done. We're over-promising, under-delivering, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think that was within about 2 months' worth of the job.
Right.
So I think save everybody that and tell you it up front.
Yeah.
Say no as much as you say yes. And I think a good product person as well understands that balance.
Yeah.
Because it's sometimes about not saying no directly, but finding ways to say no to that opportunity at that time and talk about when it can fit.
Right. Okay.
So it may be, you know, it's more about shaping what someone is asking for.
Yeah.
If it's not a firm no, because sometimes it is, it's shaping it and saying, okay, maybe in Q4, or here's the roadmap that we're doing.
Yeah.
It's not going to fit in now. It will later, but we might need to collaborate a little bit. It's not going to be exactly as you imagined it. So it's things like that. It's breaking it down. It's certainly not a blanket yes.
Yeah.
If it is, you're doing it very wrong.
But it could be a blanket no.
It definitely could be a blanket no. Yeah, you do have to be bad cop a lot, actually. Yeah.
But I was going to say, that's the difficult bit, isn't it? It's managing expectations. But I guess that's where the empathy comes in, right, as well. So, I mean, you've mentioned about empathy, but is there anything else that you think is like quite an important sort of personality trait to do your role?
Well, to build on the empathy thing, because I think it's all in there for me.
Yeah.
It's about being human-led. Yeah. So whether it's talking to a stakeholder or it's looking to solve a problem for a user, you have to always think the human being. An example there is at the BBC, we've been working on the last year on TV sign-in. So I actually look after sign-in, registration, verification.
Right, okay.
Platforms at the BBC.
Yeah.
It's horizontal. Yeah. It's across everything.
Right.
So, you know, I play in news, all the verticals we're horizontal across. And that means as well as those actual, you know, vertical products, you've also got all your devices. So we're across smart speakers, TVs, native apps, web, the whole thing. And within TV, if you think about it, if you're sat on your settee, you've got your big blanket on, you've maybe got your dinner on your knee or a hot drink.
Yeah, especially in this weather.
Exactly. You might not have a secondary device just hanging around. You might put the telly on. Oh, I'm going to go on iPlayer. Need to sign in. Oh, it requires a secondary device. Maybe you don't have your phone aside yet. You think, do you know what? Netflix it is.
Yeah.
Right? Or somebody else who doesn't require a secondary device.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's as simple as that. You know, we have a drop-off point on the challenge screen, which is the bit where it tells you to sign in.
Yeah.
It's around 70%.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's the bit I've done that myself. That's where it says you have to go to this address and enter this code and whatever else. 70%, that's quite high.
Absolutely.
I mean, well, 70% of anything's quite high, but yeah, that's...
Yeah. So it's things like that. I think it's not simply here's a bunch of data of what people are doing. You've got to balance your qual data, your quant data, but then you also need to be human-led.
Yeah.
You need to think about what that scenario is.
Yeah.
At Sky, I was on Sky Mobile. What about when people are on a train, they've run out of data? There's a Wi-Fi connection. Looking at things like whitelisting certain pages so they can roll their data.
Right, yeah.
Do you know, there's so many things like that is outside the box.
Yeah.
And you can only get there if you think about what it is to be a human in the world and how we interact with tech.
Yeah, just real life scenarios where you're like,
exactly.
This is either really frustrating, or this is a problem, how do I solve it? Or actually, let's just make life easier.
Yeah, and it does require that creativity.
Yeah.
Take another Sky example, and I use Sky a lot because most people are familiar with, TVs, broadband connections, everything like that. There's a problem with your broadband box. You're looking at a help article while you also got your head behind the telly with all the wires, and you're trying to fix it. Press a button to play and it reads it to you.
That would make life a lot easier.
Exactly. Yeah.
Have you got like it's a bit of a cheesy question, but like a productivity hack?
Okay. So I have ADHD, for which if I don't work in certain ways, it can mean chaos.
Right, okay.
Chaos for me.
Yeah.
I'm an overachiever. Personality type as well, so for me it's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of will smash out 3 times the work of a normal person if you're a neurodivergent person. But in order to do that, I need to kind of have this way of working.
Yeah, yeah.
I use certain tools, like my big thing is Miro. I use Miro a lot.
Right, okay.
Because it's very visual, can move things around, it's not just a list.
Yeah.
And I have a notepad. So through the day, any notes that come up, any things that I need to do, I put it all in the notepad.
Right.
So it's away from my screen. I take the time, I write the note. Then what I do is, at the end of every day, I go through the notepad.
Yeah.
And if it's a task, I put it on Miro.
Right, okay.
So they're clear tasks. It's not gibberish and crazy spidery writing.
Yeah.
It's a nice task that I can mark as done when I've done it. And everything else would be just highlight it out. Right, done it, that's now a task for me to deal with.
Yeah.
Or that's an action to deal with.
Yeah.
So I kind of keep the two separate. And for me, that really helps. So these are things to be done, and I can decide when. So put a time and all that sort of stuff on them. This is just mess.
Right.
The stuff in my head goes there.
Just chuck everything there and then pick out the bits that you actually need to do.
Deal with it at the end, make it into concise actions for myself. And I feel like that massively changed how I approach tasks and to-dos. It's
good that you transfer it over, because I guess that's the thing with pen and paper that I always find. And I'm still a pen and paper person, mainly because I did art at A-level, so I just still now just like do random doodles or just symmetrical patterns. It's probably like a form of OCD, but if I start drawing a star, I need to make sure that everything's the same and stuff. I know for a fact that if I don't do that, if I don't transfer it over to something digital, I'll turn the page and I'll never turn the page back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely need to be on top of it and and organised. So I was going to ask about like sort of tools and stuff that's like indispensable to your job, but would you say that that's sort of the main one then?
Yeah. So I think everybody seems to love Miro now. Right. Post lockdown, I think it's just the best way to collaborate with teams. You've got the timers, the voting, ideation sessions. I think are great on Miro because again, you can have people on video and you can have that kind of interaction, but then everybody is involved. Sometimes in meetings, some more introverted characters may not join in, may not want to talk up. Yeah. They can still get it all out on there, right? And it's all written. You can easily drag, drop, transform it into something else, put it into Excel, just all the different integrations. I'm definitely not getting any kind of royalties or whatever from Miro.
Download it here.
Yeah, there are other programs. But for me, it's the best one out of the ones that are out there. I just really like it. I think it manages like my tasks, but also it helps really maintain that kind of team gelling and collaborating and things like that. So I honestly have so many Miro boards. One for like the team, we have daily check-ins and people like put their feelings in and they manage all their own tasks in there. So I can also see what the team are doing and we can kind of assign things to each other. But also, all the stuff, thinking about the roadmap, having conversations with people, storing things in one place. Yeah. Just love it.
Nice. And you can download it here.
Yeah.
But the products are available. So, like people listening, I want to try and give, obviously, like, as I say, as much sort of advice as we can do. But if there was like one piece of advice to someone starting out and thinking about getting into either just tech in general or a role in products, what would it be?
I think the best thing you can do is attend some of the events that are happening, because I think we both know it's a world that you don't know about until you know about it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you know, or who you know.
Yeah.
The world is still full of gatekeeping, and there are so many great opportunities out there that are free, that are accessible to people, whether it's online or in person. I think if you can get into the mix there, and just find out, it's as easy as Googling it, whether it's a particular role and then the city you're in or the town, whatever, or even just online, getting into tech, for example, the amount of responses that you're going to get there is huge.
Yeah.
But I do think that's the way to do it. Meet some people. Again, it's all about people.
Yeah.
Meet some people. They will explain, oh, do you know, there's this thing happening, and I actually know about this, women in tech event where you get to learn to code for free, or, Sky are hosting this thing, or, the BBC are doing these apprenticeship schemes.
Yeah.
Start talking to people, get in the mix, get your face known, and that's how to do it. I think it's a two-way street, because you understand where it is you fit. Because again, we don't know where we fit into tech, really. I don't think there's a cheat sheet anywhere. There's new roles coming out every day.
Yeah.
How do you know what is a fit for you? It'll be a completely different phrase, but it'll be the same kind of skills. So, Scrum Master, are you a motivator? Are you a good coach?
Yeah.
Are you a problem solver?
Do you have positive vibes?
Do you have all important positive vibes?
Yeah.
So many people could do that role. I think it's just, you bring that to the table and then you learn the technical skills.
Yeah.
I think, tech, because it's still an emerging sector, there's so many people who can just kind of come in sideways and then learn some skills. It's easy to learn that. It's harder to change your personality type. So I think getting involved in the communities is great. You find out who you are, where you fit into it, what that jigsaw is, and you get those opportunities. So I think that's the big one.
I think as well, like from my experience as well, like everyone's so friendly. Not everyone, but the vast majority of people, if you're in tech, actually want to help other people.
Yeah.
It's like, well, like you say, oh, have you looked at this, or have you spoken to this person? It's not a closed industry, is it? It is very open. There's lots of like knowledge sharing, thought sharing, like you say, events, blogs, etc., etc. It's,
you just have to know they're there. That's the thing. That's the main thing. If you don't know to search for it, you don't know they exist, it might feel closed off.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing. The more conversations that we have, and we promote this outside of our industry as well, not just within our little groups and in our silos, and let people know, then I think more people will fall into tech just for that reason.
Yeah. So last question then is, what's the one question that you wished I'd asked you, and how would you have answered?
Well, I always love talking about diversity and getting more people into tech.
Yeah.
So even though we've touched on bits of it, I think to build on that, what can we all do better?
Yeah.
I really hate when people have conversations at sort of very high level, and they'll say, we would like 30% of our workforce to be disabled, quote.
Yeah.
That's an actual quote from a business that I worked for.
Gosh.
It's so insensitive.
Yeah.
Right. To come back to this like human-led thing, yes, you have quotas to fill, and the quotas are there to fill because that company has been so terrible at diversity that they're having to make up for it.
Yeah.
Right. That's the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
So yes, you need to go and fix that, but by saying things like, we are 3% off our target, it's gross.
Yeah.
So I think, again, make it more organic.
Yeah.
Make it just a part of people's roles. I think people in senior leadership, there's a lot of accountability there. And I think that we need to kind of have that a little bit more official, right? If you're a senior leader, you get X amount of like volunteer time and you need to fulfill it.
Yeah.
I think that's where we need to put this energy rather than these silly targets.
Yeah.
Because it does just become so gross, and it becomes less about the people, it becomes about how the company looks on the outside.
Yeah.
Which really gross.
Yeah, I agree.
So it is important, but it's how we go about it. So I think for me, that's the big thing. How do we get more people in, but be human about it?
Yeah.
And the reason it's not let's get people in just because we want them to be in for paper figures. We want them to be in because that's what makes all of our products better.
Yeah. It's diversity of thought as well, isn't it? That's the thing. It's not just we want, 2 more women, like you say, 2 more disabled people, 2 more whatever. It's actually, you have to, like your point, putting the human element to it. It's actually, that's a vast array of different thought processes and the way different people think. that actually, I mean, the stats are out there, aren't they, in terms of actually the benefits of diversity in your teams. Diversity way outperform a team of, what a tech team might have been 20 years ago. So, I mean, it's such an important topic. And like you say, it can't just be a number on a piece of paper to try and adhere to. So
yeah, exactly. The stats are there.
Yeah.
Like you say, the research has all been done. High performing teams, right? And it's people. We're creating technology for people. If you're only creating it for this amount of people, you're not even hitting your own targets, are you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
it's just
true.
silliness.
Yeah.
It's just very insensitive. And just to come back to that point I made, the quote there about 30% of people disabled. Loads of people would hate to be described in that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, again, for tick box exercises, there are certain terms to use. So many people, if you just listen, hate being seen as like this block, this section of a pie chart in a HR report. Like, oh, gross.
Or actually having a label.
Yeah, any kind of label.
Just,
yeah.
Yeah.
Because then, as well, that kind of fosters this, I don't know, atmosphere sometimes that people then see their colleagues that way.
Yeah.
We see it a lot in women in tech forums when people say, people just assume I'm a junior.
Really?
Things like that. Yeah, a lot of, especially engineers, right, will have actual lived experiences of people assuming they're there because of some sort of program, rather than that they deserve to be there.
God.
Yeah. So that's the sort of thing that is happening. I've had plenty of people come to me in the leadership capacity to say, "What's your advice on this? Because this is happening." Or I've seen it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
Can you make notes? Can you run and get some cakes from the shop, please? There are a lot of microaggressions purely just for gender. That's we're sitting here as people that don't represent lots of other experiences and characteristics. We don't know what they are, right? We have to ask people. We have to figure things out. We have to learn from each other. Yeah, that's the big one.
Yeah.
Let's diversify our teams. Let's make better tech for everybody.
Yeah.
The way to do that, human-led.
Yeah. Love it. Well, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me. It's been nice to be here.
Thank you for listening to Tech is for Everyone. If you're looking to start your career in tech or want to know more about how our academy can help grow and diversify your teams, then find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, or via the Qualcomm Tech Academy website. Links can be found in the description. Look forward to having you join us on the next episode.